If you're like me and you've been struggling to understand the concept of AI agents, I'm going to help you understand that in this video. Now, a very simplified way to look at AI agents is that it's basically a loop that continuously queries a model of your choice until the model says, I think the user's goal has been accomplished. In this video, the main focus is to use code to show you how you can create your own agents or just how they work behind the scenes. Now, obviously, there are more concepts that applies to agents. You hear a lot of buzzwords. You hear things like React framework, architecture, memory tool. You hear a lot of these things, which are also very important. But the idea of this video is to give you a simplified way of understanding AI agents. What we had before was just a very simple interface like ChatGPT, where you can ask questions and you get answers if your questions relate with information that the model has been trained on. I have this very simple interface, and this is running my own model locally. So I have the front end. I'm not really going to dive into the code, but basically I send a request to this API here, and I'm using this model, which is an open source Ollama model that I have running currently on my laptop. And here I'm just streaming the response from the backend to the front end. I have a couple of examples here. Let's start from nodetools.py. Here I have my server, which exposes these endpoints. We get the request from the user. We start streaming to the front end, and here we send our request to the model. The response we get from the model, we can stream that to the front end. Just basic ask question, get answer from the model. So that way I can say something like, how are you? I'm a digital assistant. Obviously, at some point you want to extend the capabilities of AI. You don't just want the ask question, give me answer from what you already know. You also want access to real-time information. And one of the ways that the capabilities of AI has been improved is with tools. So tools gives your AI extra power. So you don't just rely on information that the model has been trained on, but you also have access to real-time information. And this video is not really focused on tools, but I just want to touch a bit on how tools work. So what we have here, if I go to firebase.py, you can see I have a bunch of functions here which do a lot of things. Here we get a list ID by the name. Here we get a list by name. Here we get all the to-do lists. As you can see on the right here, I have a couple of to-do lists. There is a list called video and it has 2 items. So when we list to-do list, we are getting random, font, general, the list names. So I have all of these tools and I can expose these tools to my model. Depending on the model you use, some models support tools and other models, they don't really know how to work with tools. The model I'm currently using works well with tools. So when I call ollama.chat, I can pass the tools here. And what we now get is you can stream response as usual, but the model, if it has to call a tool, in its response, you would have 2 calls here. And based on these 2 calls, I can actually loop through all the tools and execute the tool. So if we're still on this example, no tools, where there are no tools exposed to the model, if I say something like details about all my to-do lists, it's not going to have any idea because by itself, the model does not know about exactly. It doesn't know about my personal devices or accounts, so it cannot give me that information. But now if we quit this server and then we run simple.py, which is this server where I have exposed tools to the model. Now, if we run this one here, I can ask again details about my to-do lists. And now it's going to be aware that I have a couple of tools that I can access at any time. And one of those tools is going to be list to-do lists. And then it can call exactly list to-do list. So now it knows there is a tool like that. Now, this is what we get from the model. The model is not calling the tool. The model is just saying, I am aware that there are a couple of tools available, and based on the description of those tools and based on what the user is asking, list to-do list tool is a tool that I can call to achieve that information. But like I said, the model is not calling the tool. Instead, it is my code here where I am calling the tool. I stream a response to the front end to say there is a tool call and this is the tool name, and that's what we have here. Tool call and tool name, these are the arguments that was passed to the function. And then here, this is now where I actually call the tool. So I have tool result, and then I actually execute the function for that tool. And when I get the response from the function call, I send that response again to the front end. This is where I am streaming tool result with the tool name. And then here we have tool result with the tool name, and I have the response. But another thing I would expect is that I should get a summary of this result. Don't just call the tool and end there, give me a result. And that is what I do here. Now that we get the tool result, we're going to add to our messages array role tool with the tool name with the tool result. And this is important because, as you would read in the docs for tool calling, you want to pass this back to the model so that the model knows that the tool has been called and there is a result. This is just adding to the messages array, but now we can pass that messages back to the model and we can stream the response of the model. So now if I say details about my to-do list here, it's going to figure out that, okay, I need to call the list to-do list call. Well, it didn't tell me all of this, but it figured out that I need to call this. And after calling this and getting the response, because we add the response of the tool here and we call the model again, the model can now give us a summary of that tool call. So here we see, here are the details of your to-do lists, this for general, this for groceries. Where does an agent come into all of this? Well, an agent comes in where I don't have to be involved in the loop anymore. Let me show you where an agent comes in. Let's say I want to delete butter from general. As a human who is involved in the decision making, my goal is to delete butter from general. Now, if I tell the AI directly to remove butter from the from the general list, we're going to see that the model tries to call remove item, which is a function that I have for removing items for a list. And here we have the list ID general, the text contains butter. But then when we call this, you can see we get the response from the tool that says no list found with ID general. It seems there's an issue because no list with the name general was found. Let's try to find the correct ID for your general list by searching for a special name. I will call this tool, and then it stops there. It stops there because at this point, I only call the model one more time. Now, as a human involved in the loop, what I can say is, okay, give me the list ID of the general list. The model knows what tool to call, so it tells me this is the ID. And then now I can say remove the butter item from the list this. And then it can now call remove item and it can pass the ID to that remove item, and it has been successfully removed. You can see general, I have butter here. If I refresh, I don't have butter there anymore. But what you see here is I was still involved. I had to first get the ID, then I had to remove butter. And you can think of these as many ways. Let's say, for example, my goal is to set a meeting with John tomorrow. As a human, I would have to first check, do I have available time tomorrow? Then I check, does John have available time tomorrow? Then now I can book a meeting with John for a specific time that we're both available. But if an agent is involved, I don't have to be there to make the decision. I just give the agent my goal. This is what I want to achieve. And then the agent can decide what to do next in combination with the model. And it can first check my availability, check John's availability, then schedule a meeting for both of us. And what we have here, like I said at the beginning, is basically a loop. Here, we don't really have a loop per se. We call the model one time, we get two results, and we call the model again. But sometimes you want to keep calling the model until a goal has been achieved. That's where agents come in. And when we go to agent.py, the basic difference between agent.py and simple.py is that I have while true here. While true, query this model. You found out that some tools need to be called. You execute the tools here. I pass the tool result to the messages array. Then we're done with that loop. We go back to the beginning of the loop. Now the messages array contains the result of the tool. The model can now decide, what do I need to do with this result of the tool? Do I need to call another tool, or am I done with this conversation? And we keep going until we get to that very end. I'm going to add butter back to the general list. Okay, let's start afresh. Oh, I need to run my server agent.py. So I'm going to ask remove butter from the general list. Let's see what the model thinks is the smartest thing to do. The first thing the model did, it's supposed to tell us something like, this is what I'm going to do, because as part of my prompt, I added here, always break down the task into small steps and respond with the steps, but it didn't do that. I don't know why. What's happening here is that first it tried to find the list ID by the name, and it had general, and it got the list ID, but for some reason it did it again and again 3 times. Maybe this is also a shortcoming of my agent. Maybe my agent is not really good enough, or maybe it's also my model. My model was not smart enough and it kept calling the same tool. Then we have remove item. We call this, and then we finally remove the item, and the item has been removed successfully. So here we have butter, and if I refresh, you can see we don't have butter here anymore. So what we have here now is a loop where the agent decided, well, the model decided that the first thing I need to do is to call this tool to get the ID. After I got the ID, I don't know why it had to get the ID up to 3 times, and then it decided, okay, now that I have the ID, I can now call this tool to remove the item, and here we remove the item, and then we get this. Remove watch a funny video from the video list. Okay, it's doing some interesting things this time around, which is nice. So the first thing it tries to do is that it tries to call remove item, and it passes the item and the list ID. So it tries to do that, and then here we get the tool result, no list found with the ID video. It seems there is no to-do list name video. Let's first create that list before we can remove items from it. Why do you need to create a list when I already have a video? Anyways, it attempts to do that, create to-do lists, and then we see that video already exists. Yes, because we already have a to-do list with a name called video. It seems there's a misunderstanding. The name of the list is case sensitive and should be exact. Let's try to find the correct ID for the video using its name. Okay, here we find the ID. I don't know why it has to call the ID multiple times. I promise you this demo was looking much better before this video. I don't know why it's acting this way. Anyways, now we call remove item. It calls the list ID, and then it passes this item, watch a funny video, removed from the list. So you got success, and it's still called remove item again, and now it's even having problems. Okay, if I refresh here, see, it actually removed, but then the model doesn't know. What you see here is that your agent can be really good, and obviously there are more things you should do with your agents than just having while loop. You should also do things like planning, memory, architecture, how you structure your agent, when to loop, when to act, when to question the model again. This again is a very simplified agent, but also you need to use smarter models that really understand what you are doing and is not just repeating the same thing over and over again. Let's give this one more shot before I come to the end of this video. From this general list, I'm going to add drum for the sake of it, and I'm going to say, when performing actions, first list the steps of what you want to do, then perform the actions. You can see that the model already is giving you ideas of what you might want to do because of the tools that you exposed to it. Very interesting. Remove drum from the general list. It still didn't list the steps. Anyways, it calls remove item, then it says there is no to-do list named general in your Firebase. Let's first ensure we have a list called general before attempting. Now it's listing the steps. First, find the ID of the general list, then remove the item containing drum. Okay, it finds the list ID, it gets the list ID, and it says it seems there's an issue finding the list by name. However, I have been able to find the ID. Now we can proceed with removing, then it finishes removing. Now it has been removed successfully. Then it's telling me all the steps that it followed. And now when I refresh, drum is no longer there. As a human, I didn't have to first check, is there a general list? What's the ID of the list? Now remove drum. I just gave it a goal, and the model, through try and error, decided what to do next. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to show in this video, that if you want to understand agents, the basic idea is a while loop with other components, of course, but a while loop that keeps querying your model, and based on the responses it gets from your model, can decide if it should stream the response to the user or call a particular tool, or maybe even reprompt the model to say something like, are you sure of this answer, before it gives that response to the user. Again, the goal of this video was to give you a sort of behind the scene to see what exactly agents are doing, what makes them so powerful. When you're using agents in a code editor, for example, you see the agent going through multiple phases, from reasoning, planning, changing files, discovering errors, trying to fix the errors, at some point running shell scripts when you approve. This is basically what it's doing behind the scene. Looping, querying the model says, call this tool. The model says, okay, I am done. There is no more tools to call. And then the agent stops responding. I need to drink some water, but anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be trying to simplify more concepts in AI as they become clearer for me. And yeah, let me know what you think about this video and let me know what you think about agents. I hope this helped, but see you in my next video.